Welcome to the podcast where we take a deep dive into the stories behind construction business leaders. We will share how they got started, how they found success, and the lessons learned along the way. I'm your host, Eric Fortenberry. Welcome to Builder Stories. Welcome back, everybody. I'm excited today. I've got Nicholas Sammons with TruVine Renovations located in Arlington, Tennessee. How you doing, Nicholas?
Man, I'm doing good, Eric. Excited to be here.
Yeah, appreciate you coming on. So, we've known each other for, a couple of years now, but why don't you give everyone your background? How did you get into construction? What led you to start TruVine? Kind of tell us, a little bit about what you do and all of that.
Yeah, thanks. Well, first off, I'm super excited to be here. I've been listening to Builder Stories for a while and hearing what people have to say, so I'm honored that you brought me on here. My story, it seems like a long one, but I got into construction when I was probably 14 years old. My mom was working in the main office of a wrought iron door and window company, and I kind of I showed up over the summers in high school, and I started just cleaning the warehouse and things like that. And I saw these guys using welders, building these doors, these wrought iron railings, these fences, and I thought it was really cool. And so over summers, eventually, I was old enough, they put me in the making concrete fence stone section. And so I learned how to work hard at a very young age because that was like clockwork. We were taking out all of the fence stone from the molds from 7 to 10 in the morning. From 10 to noon, we were prepping them and cleaning it. And then from noon to 3, we were pouring concrete every single day. So I got really strong too. That was good for me playing football growing up. But I went to college at the University of Tennessee. I got my bachelor's degree in education. My major was kinesiology. And I applied to several physical therapy schools in state, and nothing was just really panning out. I didn't want to go bukus into student loan debt just to get a degree that I wasn't super passionate about. It was just something that I was kind of told that these were the pathways that I should follow. And so I came back and I started working at that company again. And I moved into prepping the doors to installing the doors there. And I did that for about 6 years. And I went to the owner of that company and I told them what I was looking for. I knew there was more to this than just putting in doors every single day. I knew I couldn't break my back. These doors are 300 or 400 pounds a piece that you're just hanging up every single day. And he kind of told me that this was as far as I was going to get. So that was kind of the catalyst for me to start looking into other things. I eventually got a job at a local bath fitter here and was installing some bathrooms, kind of learned a little bit of plumbing, more framing, that kind of stuff. And within just a couple of months, they noticed I had a degree. They thought that automatically qualified me for some sort of management position, which I was vastly unqualified for. Most of the guys I was working with had been there a lot longer than me. They were a lot more experienced. But I was able to become the production manager there for about 3 to 4 years. And then COVID hit. So when COVID hit, Bath Fitter has 2 manufacturing plants, and while we were considered essential, those plants were under the rules of if one person comes down with COVID, they have to shut the plant down. And so the plants ended up shutting down. We couldn't get any material and we were furloughed. And what happened at that point is I kind of made the decision of I am tired of relying on someone else for a check. I want to be able to have that control in my own hands. And I wanted to challenge myself a bit. I read the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad while I was furloughed. And I was like, okay, so I need to get in some sort of sales position or start a business. And I was like, I don't know if I'm ready to start a business. Let's jump into sales. But again, I wanted to challenge myself. So I said, what is the most difficult thing outside of cold calling? It's probably door knocking in the middle of COVID. So I got on with a roofing company. We I was doing pretty well with that. I was making some sales. And then I started to realize there were some unethical things going on at this company. And I decided to leave. And when that happened, I was like, okay, I know how to do the work. I know how to manage the work, and I know how to sell. I know how to run a business. And I took the last kind of $2,000 that we had in our bank account, and I told my wife, I said, I'm going to start a business. And she said, why don't you get a real job? Which at the time was a totally valid statement. She doesn't say anything like that now. She's super grateful that we took the leap. But I dove in head first, and that's kind of how all of this started.
That's awesome. That's pretty incredible though to see you grow up, literally grow up in the trades, learning, working, hand in hand, kind of building all that stuff, and then getting, into the roofing business to get the sales skills to just say, I'm willing to gonna roll the dice and start your own thing. I mean, that obviously took a lot of guts, man. I can imagine that your wife was probably saying a whole lot more than just that, but probably a little worried. And that's pretty neat. So how did you decide what you wanted to focus on?
Yeah, that's a really great question. From selling in the middle of COVID, I kind of realized that a lot of people go to Facebook when they need something, especially when people weren't doing on-site consultations or going to door as much. Everything was kind of virtual and online at the time. So I figured, hey, if I just kind of put my services out there, I started off as a handyman, that I could get some work. And I remember the first job I got, I found on Facebook a guy needed a 8-foot piece of crown molding replaced above his fireplace, and I charged $125 for that. So that was my first job.
Nice. And so what is, so was this like 2020 kind of when you started this?
Yeah, so I started in April of 2020.
Okay.
And that first job I think I got was in May. And I think it cost me about $100 to do the job because it wasn't a standard piece of crown molding. And so it was more expensive than I anticipated. But it was just fun to get that first one.
Yeah, absolutely. And so what does the business look like today? Like what's your bread and butter?
Yeah, so earlier this year we rebranded and we niched down to kitchens, baths, and home additions. And oddly enough, I would have thought the bathrooms and the kitchens would be more because they're typically less of an investment. But the addition side is where we've really taken off, and we've been doing a lot of those.
Like garages and kind of the mother-in-law suites, like
attic conversions, outdoor living spaces,
okay.
Sometimes bathrooms or master bedroom suites.
Yeah, nice. And so what does your team look like today? I assume early on it was just you for a while. I mean, do you have other employees or using, trade partners? How do you manage the business?
Yeah, so we fully subcontract all of our labor. We have a list of about 70 vendors that we go to. We use consistently about the same 5 to 10 subcontractors. And then as far as employees go, we currently have one project manager, Cameron, who's with us, and then we have our office admin, Stacy.
Okay, so it's just the three of you there. Nice. And when did you decide to hire, your project? Was the project manager first, and then the office, or vice versa? And how did you decide, when to hire those people? Because I know a lot of people struggle with, can I afford a full-time employee? Like, what happens if business slows down? Am I going to be able to make payroll? Like, kind of what helped you sort of, lead to that decision, and when was that?
Yeah, so during the handyman phase of everything, back in 2020, I pretty much was doing everything all by myself. And that first year, I did a little over $100,000 in revenue. And Towards the end of that year, I actually injured myself. I was installing a tile backsplash in a kitchen, and I thought I broke my foot because I was standing on my toes over the countertop all day. And it was kind of that trigger in my head that was like, I can't do this by myself. And if I want to build something, I'm going to need some people to help me. And so that was the first job I kind of took. I took a loss on it, but I hired some subcontractors in to do it. And that's when I realized that, hey, I can have some hired help to help me along. Now, I continued to do my own installs about halfway through 2021, into 2022. And I started to get so many leads that I was working from 5:30 in the morning. That's me running to Lowe's, picking up materials, doing the job throughout the day, going out and doing estimates till 5, 6 o'clock at night, and then coming home till 9, 10 o'clock, sometimes writing proposals. So I needed some help with all of these leads that I was getting, and I actually hired a project manager. And originally we went with the same type of employee model as the roofing company I was at, where this person would sell and also project manage. So I taught my first project manager, Tim, to go out, how to sell, how to estimate, and then whatever he sold, he would manage with the subcontractors, and then he would get paid a commission off of that. We've since changed from that structure. But for me, that was kind of like the first step. I couldn't do everything on my own. I needed someone to handle the influx of leads that we were getting.
Nice. So, I mean, I'm again, most brand new businesses don't necessarily see this huge influx, maybe a year or so in. I mean, like what would you attribute that to? I mean, did you invest in marketing, a website? Were you, running ads? Sounds like you kind of started in the Facebook, just kind of online, social media, but like, what would you say kind of led to that? And what advice would you give others in regards to when should they invest in marketing and how should they do that?
Yeah. So when I first started, it was all Facebook. I was trying to do as much free stuff as possible. So I created a Facebook page. I was posting every single job, befores, kind of told a story of what we were doing, why we were doing it. And this was before I knew anything about marketing in general. And then I would post some in the middle, kind of create some suspense of what was going to be happening at the end, and then post the afters. I would post just like going and picking up material from Lowe's or something, just to let people know what we were out here doing every single day. And that was gathering support and attention. I immediately joined a BNI group as well, so Business Networking International. When I was in the roofing company, they had put me in a BNI group. And while for the roofing side, it wasn't very lucrative, there were a lot of people who I was being mentored by who I knew could help me from the very beginning of my business. So I was able to get back into this BNI group as a handyman home improvement person and get some mentorship from some people in the group to help me start my business off.
That's awesome. And so was that like, what would you say, like you found kind of the biggest, kind of focuses of that mentorship, those people helping you early on? Cause I see all the time, a lot of people are, they just keep kind of doing the same things over and over again, thinking that like something's going to change or, they're going to get some good luck or whatever it may be. And like, so often like, you can keep doing that, but like there's so many other people out there who are likely going through the same thing or have already gone through that, all these coaching communities and groups. Like, sounds like you found mentors early on, which sounds like, an awesome move for you. What would you say though, your biggest takeaways, specifically, like what did you learn from those mentors early on that you think like, if you wouldn't have known that, like you might've struggled or may not have even made it?
Oh, wow. I mean, everything. More specifically, I wanted to do everything the right way. In contracting in general, there's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of chaos. There's a lot of differences between one guy and the next. So my business in general, while we build kitchens, baths, and home additions, our job is to bring a peaceful renovating experience, because the number one uncertainty clients have about contractors is that uncertainty. So removing that in any way possible. So these guys in BNI, they taught me, some people in insurance, they're like, hey, here's what you need to have in insurance. Here's what you should show up to every client's house with your license, your proof of insurance in a folder, and give it to them. So that uncertainty automatically goes away. Things like accounting. One of my first BNI mentors gave me contact information for an accountant who could help me keep my books together, because I did it myself for like the first 3 or 4 months, and I didn't realize how much trouble I was about to get into. So, excuse me, taking care of like those very basic things for me early on, setting me up on a foundation to where, I wasn't getting 2 or 3 years down the road and running into, those kind of problems. Those were very beneficial.
Yeah.
So,
no, that makes total sense. Yeah, and I see a lot of people who don't understand the importance of having, a set of books in place. And, anytime I see someone and ask them, so what are you using? They're like, oh, got a spreadsheet, or, well, I don't know, I just write checks. And, we sort of figure it out later. It's like, oh man, like, I don't know if Job Dread's the right place to start for you right now. Like, we need to get that foundation built. That sounds like very sound advice you got early on. So obviously, you got the contractor fight flag right behind you. I think we probably met through the contractor fight. I mean, how did you find Tom Reber's group, and when did you join Battleground, and kind of what has that been like for you?
Oh man, it's been nothing short of, quite honestly, I would call it a miracle, man. I started my business with the idea that I would get, more freedom, that I would grow this thing to be able to make just an income that most people dream of. And by the end of that first year, I told you I had gotten injured. I was working long hours. And something just told me like, hey, people don't go into business to work longer, harder, and for way less money. And so I went to YouTube, I'm sure as most people do, and I just typed in how to run a contracting business. And that's where I first saw Tom, and he was talking about, tracking your numbers. He was telling you, if you're not making $100,000 a year, then you might as well spit in your wife's face and slap her. And I was like, whoa, hold on a second. And it actually reminded me a lot of playing football in high school, and my old high school coach, and, just telling you how it is, no BS. If you want something, you got to go out there and get it. And that's what drove me to the contractor fight. I joined it in February of 2022, and I couldn't afford the $700 a month at the time. I think it's $800 a month now. And so I just put it on a credit card, with hope that I would dive in there, learn everything I could, and come out on the other side better for it. And by the end of that first year in Battleground, I was able to not only afford it, but pay for the next entire year in advance, just from what I learned from that program.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. So for those out there who are listening who aren't aware of Battleground, I mean, can you tell us kind of a little bit about what that program entails?
Absolutely. So you jump in, and they've done so many things over the past couple of years just to make it even better when you first come in, because I was a wallflower and I just kind of sat on the sidelines. I would get on some calls. I wouldn't interact too much, but I was always in the background doing the work. So when you get in, you first get started with numbers, and this numbers is one of the main things that helped bring me clarity, because a lot of times for these young guys in business, you don't know where you're going. You're running all over the place. You're just hoping the phone keeps ringing, that you keep selling work. And you never really have an idea of where you're actually at. So what numbers does is it gives you that clarity. It lets you know if you're doing really good or if you're not, but at least you know. I heard Rene Rodriguez say one time, it's a terrible place to find yourself 100 feet from Niagara Falls without an oar or a motor, but it's an even worse thing to not know you're in that situation. So, we were able to figure out what our break-even point was, exactly how much money we had to bring in every single month in order for myself to get paid, for all the bills in the company to get paid. And then what that data does is it gives you information so you can make decisions on what you want to do with your business. And so taking that to heart, it starts off small. Everybody sees this KPI spreadsheet that has 1,000 different things on it and they freak out because they're like, I have no idea how to work this thing. But for me, I just started with one thing. I just started keeping track of my leads. And then the following year, I started to track where did those leads come from. And all of that information allows me to make decisions on where do I want to put my marketing dollars? Where do I need to maybe cut back a little bit? What's working and what's not working?
Sure. I've never understood how people can build a business without having that understanding of your financials and your numbers. And so, I think that's probably what drew me in as well to Contractor Fight and Tom, and is just like, man, like this guy's really preaching hardcore about knowing your numbers. And it's like, here we are kind of building Job Tread very early on. Like we're focusing just on that old budgeting piece. And it's like, man, this guy's like preaching the same thing I am. Like this is awesome to like see this program that got created. And it's been really interesting to be able to kind of see how, people really very early on join that program and can fairly quickly start to really build a very good business. Once you have that foundation in place, it gives you, the skills that you need to then start focusing on, building out the business. I mean, there's a lot of focus on the sales, and like the different techniques and how you can, do a better job of trying to navigate those conversations, especially early on, to help the customer feel more comfortable and feel like, they're getting their needs met and that they're willing and excited to move forward with you, but also like, the network, I feel like that network, is so valuable and just, regardless what group people join, like I feel like it's so important that contractors go find their tribe, find a group that they can join, that they can feel that they are at home, they are, part of this greater community, because like it's such an awesome opportunity to be able to collaborate and work with others who are having similar challenges and going through that same thing at the same time, because you can be each other's support. You can be each other's sounding board. Like, I'm sure you got your go-to people. If you ever got into a situation, like there's probably, you got a long list of people that you could call and immediately get on the phone and have a quick consult and then turn right back around and implement whatever you just figured out. And like, that is invaluable. That literally can make or break someone. And to have that network there, like I'm a huge advocate of people, finding those groups and finding people to surround themselves with that can help them through the tough times.
Yep, absolutely. And just looking back, when I joined in February of 2022, the previous year we had done 100,000. Just by getting into the numbers and knowing my numbers alone, we went up to 600,000 in revenue that year. And,
nice.
And you're absolutely right. I've got that long list of guys that I can call that are going through the exact same thing. They may be 10 laps ahead of me. They might be 10 laps behind me, but we're all moving in the same direction. And while one person is reaching up to be pulled up with that other arm, they're reaching down and pulling up the guy next to him. So it's a great community. I love getting together with these guys. I love going to every single event that they have, getting together with like-minded people who are going through the exact same thing. So.
Oh. And you just came back from Mile High Profit Summit in Denver, right?
Yeah.
So tell us kind of what I understand it was their last year doing it, which is sad. We've been there every year too, but like, what would you say your biggest takeaways from that event were?
So this is my third time going, and the first time I went, Marcus Sheridan was there as well, and he actually got me into They Ask You Answer. I read his book, and that first year I was in Battleground, I did the They Ask You Answer style videos. They were very young. I hope nobody goes back and watches those first versions. But just coming back, listening to Marcus again talk about the importance of They Ask You Answer, how AI is now being involved with all of that, was just such a big reminder to go back and continue doing that video content, those videos, asking or answering the questions that your clients are asking you every single day, not being afraid to kind of pull back the Wizard of Oz curtain of what stuff costs and what it looks like to work with your business. So I've put a lot of focus since we've been coming back on creating that same type of content.
Yeah. No, I'll never forget hearing Marcus speak at that Mile High too. I mean, I would say that transformed our business as well. I mean, I immediately bought the book, read it. For those of you who haven't read Marcus Sheridan's book, They Ask You Answer, like, that's probably one of my top go-tos right now. Best recommended book ever. I mean, like, it's just so powerful to think about, like, if you're getting asked a bunch of questions and you're not like sharing that out on your website, like, that is the most valuable content. That is what people ask for over and over and over again. And it's like, you can just capture so much of that, that SEO and that, like, kind of that understanding of your business by answering that stuff publicly on your website, on your blogs, in your social media, and I think probably my biggest takeaway is like, he was like, if you're making decisions, to hide or to not do something because you're scared of the competition, then like you're doing yourself a disservice, you're doing your prospects a disservice, you're doing your customers a disservice. And like, that's like, I mean, that we now open up all of our customer town halls, our product updates. Like, we invite everybody, to come into those. We recently are working on now publishing all of our product updates on our website. Like, I think to the extent that, like, if you ever feel like you're trying to hide, or you don't want your competition or someone to find out your pricing or whatever, it's like, Marcus Sheridan's approach is like, look, put it all out there. At the end of the day, like, you help them become an educated buyer, and it's going to make that sales process so much smoother than if you're having to do all of the education from day one, versus if they come in and they've already read and they've already learned about you and they've already learned the common, questions that they have, that they're going to ask. Like, it's a warm lead now. It's so much more of a natural conversation. It's not like I'm having to like teach them everything, right? Like, I'm a huge proponent of Marcus and his his strategy there. I think it's a great one.
Yeah, absolutely. And for our area, we've got a population of almost 1 million people in our service area, and we are probably by far one of the most expensive in our niche, because we're a general contractor, we subcontract everything, and then we apply the contractor's fight 50% gross profit. So when our clients see us and we're teaching them on what stuff costs, how it applies to them, what it looks like to work with us, even though sometimes I get told we're twice as expensive, or maybe we're 1.5 times more expensive than the next closest guy, they feel like they know exactly what they're getting for what they're paying, and the clarity that's created there builds trust. And so,
Yep.
Last year, after doing $600,000 in 2022, in 2023, we did $1.35 million in revenue. We sold $1.6 million. So this stuff does work.
Yep.
And I know guys out there in our industry locally here who are doing $10 million, but they're not bringing in as much profit as we are doing the 1.35. And it's like, why in the world would you want to do that much work for so little money?
Yeah. No, it's a great point, and I think it goes back to just like knowing, your numbers and knowing your worth and holding the line. Like, so many people just want to kind of cave whenever the customer asks for a discount or asks for, some cheaper, price. And it's like, man, like, if you know your numbers, if you understand your value and your worth, you can say, hey, look, we'd love to be able to work with you. I mean, maybe we need to take something away, or maybe we need to kind of change the scope here, instead of just coming in and just discounting. That is never like, the answer. It's like, let's figure out what the root, concern is. And I think that Battleground does a great job of training, all of the members on how to handle the price objections. And, at the end of the day, like I hear, you, and I hear just tons and tons of people time and time again saying like, yeah, we are the most expensive contractor out there, and I'm still winning the jobs.
Mm-hmm.
And that goes to show you that like price is not always the most important factor. I think a lot of people are scared because they think that they're coming in and they think that they're overpricing, and they think that they're going to lose. And it's like, man, like you're focusing on the wrong things. That's just like head trash. Like, You need to focus on how can I help them understand the value and the customer experience that they're going to have and the quality of the work that they're going to get. And, I really love that I feel like that's kind of really like, beaten into the people of Battleground, and they do a great job handling those situations.
Yeah, my mindset is so important. The contractor fight is basically the 6 inches between your ears. And I remember thinking, how in the world am I supposed to act like a contractor that is the most expensive when I don't have all of the expensive widgets or whatever that people have to add value. And, I've heard a lot of people say, fake it till you make it. And I actually heard James Miller, one of the coaches in the contractor fight, say it differently. He said, own it until you own it. And what that means is, you go out there, you put your best foot forward, you do everything in your power to provide the value that you can with where you're at, no matter how small your business is. And if something goes wrong and you get called out on it, own that.
Yeah.
Own it. Do better next time until you actually get the capital available to invest in some of these things like JobTread.
Yeah. So I want to come back to one thing. Again, I feel like Marcus Sheridan did a really great job. Kind of the second part of They Ask You Answer is all about video. And I'm curious, I've seen you starting to really get into video a lot more. Like, what's your experience been, using video, and how have you used it? Have you incorporated it into, kind of your marketing? Have you brought it into your sales process? Like, do you capture video, along the way with your customers? Do you get reviews after? Kind of what is, how have you seen video, being implemented in your business, and what impact has it had?
Yeah, video is everything. It's all throughout all of our processes, from the initial consult. When someone fills out our form on our website, it goes into JobTread. We get their information. Sometimes we get pictures. It'll start off right there. I'll send them a video of my face, happy and smiling. I'll say, thank you so much for reaching out to TruVine. Thank you for sending these photos over. Or maybe they haven't sent them. I'll ask for them in the video, and then I'll say, here are the next steps. We're going to set up a 15 to 20-minute phone call. We'll talk about timeline, budget expectations, and what next steps are. And I send that off to them almost immediately. So they're already getting acquainted with me before we've ever stepped foot on site. They've seen my face. They understand that we're excited to be doing their project with them. And that's kind of the first step in the client process. But when we're creating video content, I think of what Tom Reber says is every moment is a marketing moment. So we're videoing everything we can. We're typically doing 3 to 4 kind of big project profiles per year. And that's where we're documenting every step of the process from day one to finish. And so that just shows clients, we show that on our website. That shows clients what it looks like to work with us through every step of the process. And there's always a point in that video, normally around when we're getting ready to do the rough-in, where we say, hey, this part can kind of slow down a bit. It's not very sexy. It takes a little while longer because you're ready to see all the finishes, but we've got to slow down and have inspections. We've got to make sure all this wiring, all of this plumbing is right. And you're probably going to get frustrated at us. But don't worry, hope is right around the corner. And people love that because they feel like they understand when that moment comes, oh, Nick told me I was going to be frustrated at this part, and it's going to pass very soon. So it builds trust there as well. You show the good and the bad. I've gone in and shown people warranty work. Hey guys, we're out here at Mr. and Mrs. Smith's house. We're doing some warranty work. Here's what we're wrong. Here's what we're doing to take care of them. Some people could be terrified to show when some mistakes may happen or you have to go back and fix something. But that just gives them trust in you. They know that your warranty is actually worth something, that you're going to take care of them should something happen. So I have more guts than brains, and that takes me back to my grandmother. We actually just got back from a family reunion in Kentucky. So I am a quarter Japanese, and she was 1 year old in Japan when the bombs were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
Man.
And when she was 23 years old, she came to the States with her American husband. And they had 3 kids, my dad, my aunt, my uncle, and they got divorced. And when they got divorced, her mom, my great-grandmother, bought her 4 one-way tickets from the States back to Japan and wanted her to come home. And she said, no, I'm going to make it. And she said, you have more guts than brains. So, she made it. She passed that down to her kids, who passed it down to us. And so sometimes you have to have more guts than brains, and just go out there and do it. Don't be afraid of what you look like on camera. Trust me, the first couple are terrible, and you're going to know it. Just post them. They don't have to be the best thing. People are going to see it, and they're going to recognize real and raw, and they will eventually get better.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think it's one of those things that you just, once you get kind of comfortable just doing it, hit record, post it, move on, and you start creating a bunch of them, it's like you just kind of get past it. But, I think the really interesting thing you said that stuck out to me is like, you're responding to your prospects and to your customers in video form. And even before you've ever met them, they're starting to see you and hear you and learn about you and start to feel like they know you. And like, people buy from people they like. And I bet every other contractor that they reach out to and that they're sending out, asking for information, like I would be willing to bet that every single one of them is just responding, with an email or with a text. But like, when you're sending those video responses, like, I mean, it puts you in a whole nother league, and it gives you such a great opportunity to show all of the passion and to show, more than just what I could type out. I mean, anyone, can respond via email, but like, you're here, you're owning it, you're face to face with them as close as you could be in video format. And like, that is such a great move, man. Like, I'm just such a big fan, even like our support team, like we respond to like almost all of our, support emails with a video showing them how to do it. And it's like, well, we could sit there and we could write out all the instructions and give you a bunch of long list, or we could just show it to you while we're telling you and you're seeing our screen. Like, and the people just like, they rave about how we do that. And they think, oh man, they went above and beyond it. Well, it's actually, I think, kind of easier to just click record, walk through, click stop, and then send. You don't have to sit there and wordsmith or write a bunch of things. Like, just be real, be raw, and send it. And like, again, I feel like that has been a huge, kind of secret, weapon for us, is that like, people feel like they get to know our team even more when they see those videos and they see us on camera. Like, we don't hide, but behind the keyboard, and I highly encourage everybody to think about how they can incorporate video into their marketing, into their sales, into their customer experience, because like it works, and then, hey, you're getting tons of bonus points when you turn around and you can publish that on YouTube and on the internet. Cause like, I mean, again, hey, YouTube, you feed the beast, and man, they keep sending you more and more traffic because they know that you're continuing to create more, value on their platform. And so I think it's a huge bonus to anyone who, isn't using video. I definitely encourage it.
Yeah, and I can't remember what the quote is. Picture's worth 1,000 words, so what's a video worth? It's funny that you said how much easier it is almost to send a video than it is to type up this long thing. And so I found that it was taking me a long time to respond to clients, because I would say, okay, I need to respond to this client. Let me, save it in my phone, and I'll get back to them when I have a spare minute and type it all out. Well, now I just pull out my phone, I take a quick video, and I send it, and it's done. And it's so much faster than it would have been if I was just sending an email or typing it up.
Absolutely. And I think that, like, I mean, I know, for me, but I also anecdotally know that, like, I mean, people very much value responsiveness. Like, if it is easy to have a conversation and to get information from someone, like, those are the people that you want to work with. If you can't even respond in a timely manner, when you're still trying to win the deal, what is the customer supposed to think about once you do win the deal? Like, why would they, if they're sitting there having to wait for hours and days to get responses, like, you're just setting the stage for a terrible experience. And so being responsive is so important, especially early on. And, I agree with you, man. Like, instead of having to stop and pull out your computer or type some long thing on your phone, like, I mean, I don't know if I recommend, if I think it's right, but I see a lot of people, they just, put their phone up on their, kind of in their holder, and they hit record while they're driving. And it's like, man, like, you get to kind of just bang them out and you get to send them off. And like, yeah, like, people see you working while also addressing. And like, that is the type of person I want to work with. Someone who's multitasking, they're productive, they're getting the answers out there, and they're not just sitting and waiting and letting it all pile up. Like, you got a good system going. Like, you're able to give me the answers while you're also taking care of other business. I mean, that's great.
Yeah, and it's funny too, because we've actually just started receiving videos back from our clients. So they get excited about it, they get on video, and then they start talking. And it's great because we're getting videos of them telling us what they want to do in their bathroom, or they're showing us something that, you couldn't see in a picture. So it kind of comes full circle. When you start putting it out, it'll start coming back to you as well.
Yeah, couldn't agree more, man. I love it. And just for anyone out there, I mean, so we use Loom, is kind of, I think what most of the people on our team, I mean, super easy. You literally click record. It kind of does it all in the cloud. You get a link, you just send in the link. Like, so you're not even having to worry about sending these huge video files. Like, I think finding some sort of a cloud service that makes it easy to do that, will also be very helpful for you.
Yeah, and it doesn't take a lot to get started in video. People also think that they need all this expensive equipment. And when I first started, it was just my cell phone. Now that we're in this a couple of years, I spent $200 on some mics so we can avoid, the windy days or the breakups or anything like that, or the echoing. And I have an $11 phone stand, and I pay $10 a month for CapCut to do some minor editing. And that's all it takes. These are one-time investments outside of CapCut, being a subscription, but for $10 a month, all the things that you can do in there just to enhance it and add a little bit more. But don't let that stop you either. I don't know how to edit. I don't know how to do this. Just go out there and do it. Be real with people. They want to see what it looks like to work with you, because you're when you do that, again, you're removing the uncertainty of doing business with you.
Yeah, I agree. And I just, another little tip, I love the DJI, the little kind of lapel mics. You just literally, it's got a magnet, you clip it on, it plugs right into your cell phone. You got, great cameras these days on the phones, just kind of reduces a lot of the background noise. Like, I mean, we use those things in the middle of, exhibit halls, and it's like the audio is still great. So, I definitely think, just start. Don't let yourself have any excuse to not start. Go out there right now today and record an awesome video of you on the job site. It doesn't matter what, just get practice doing it and start publishing it. And like, you will find that people really, really like to engage with that. So yeah, hands down, great advice there, Nick. So I wanted to ask you, so when you think back, so again, it's been, I don't know, what are we, about four years in or so, like, what would you say has been some of the biggest challenges that you face that, maybe that, you didn't realize were going to be challenges going in, or kind of like what might some of those surprises have been, and how did you overcome them?
Yeah. So, really the biggest challenge was thinking that because I had the skills of some trades work, of some management, and of some selling, that I could run a business, that I knew that I had what it took. Because that was probably the biggest thing that held me back early on, was just the lack of business acumen. And so obviously we've talked a lot about the contractor fight. That was the biggest step in me moving forward, was finding some mentors, finding people who have done what I've done, who are where I want to be, and getting around those people who can help me in the direction that I want to go. So that was probably the biggest thing, because it's not sustainable if you don't have that knowledge and understanding. It is also the easiest time now than ever to start a business because of the amount of information that's out there, but it's also the most difficult time because there's so many options that you could be finding one of those, Instagram influencers who rent out the Bugattis and stuff and they don't really know what they're talking about. But when you find that person who's who's legit. And the easiest way to tell that is, are they doing what they say they're doing, like right now? Not were they doing it 20 years ago because maybe they're out of touch. Are they doing it right now? That was one thing that really attracted me to the contractor fight, because all of the coaches in there, even Tom now, still have their remodeling business, their pond business, painting business, whatever it may be. And they're doing exactly what they're teaching in the group.
You know, I love that. No, I think it's invaluable to have people that are actually, practicing what they're preaching. And they really understand the challenges of today, not yesterday, not last year, not 10 years ago. Like it is, they're going through that same thing. And I think that really helps everyone sort of feel like they're on the same page.
Yeah.
I'm curious, like, I think you're probably going on around 3 years now at JobTread. I mean, how did you figure out that you needed to implement a system, and where did that whole mindset come from? I mean, what were you doing before JobTread, and kind of what brought you to it?
Man, before JobTread, I laugh because of how terrible it was. If I could go back and do it all over and do it the right way, I would have just started with JobTread from the start. But I was on QuickBooks, and I was just using QuickBooks kind of proposals and invoicing system. And I was breaking everything down to the most minute detail, which is it's just terrible way to do everything, because clients start to look at why your 2x4 is $2.50 and their 2x4 is 6 cents cheaper or something like that. But they were going out. The customization wasn't very good. I wasn't collecting the kind of data that I needed on the back end of everything. I wasn't job costing. And so I really like all-in-one type solutions. I didn't want to go out and find a program that had maybe one or two things here that I liked, and then I needed another one and another one and another one. And what JobTread is for us is it's that all-inclusiveness of estimating, job costing, daily logs and communication, time tracking, scheduling. All of that was incorporated into one. All the reports that you can do off of that, all the integrations that you can do. There's so much that we haven't even gotten into that we can take advantage of with JobTread, but it's that all-in-one powerhouse where everything can connect to and make it easier on your business. So I know people who have, 10 or 20 tabs open on their computer every single day. I have 3, so that's JobTread, Gmail, and my Google Calendar. And so that makes it super simple for us, which allows us to focus on other things in our business, instead of focusing on, which tab do I need open? How many subscriptions do I have? It's all in one place.
Sure. I mean, a lot of people, I see kind of, they're like, oh, we're too small, or we're not ready for a system. Like we're using Excel and it's working for us. I mean, like, you just said, you wish you would have started with it from the very beginning. I mean, how did you decide that, like, where to start? And like, obviously you can't implement everything on day one, but like, how have you kind of grown into it, and where would you advise other people to start?
Yeah. So obviously, as far as estimating goes, you need to be able to send out a professional looking proposal. And with the cost groups, the way you can set that up, creating a fixed price proposal, having your contract already embedded in that proposal, so it makes it super easy for clients just to view it, sign it, and get on your schedule. That's the first thing. And then really, you have to job cost every single job. And if you're not doing that, that goes back to numbers. You really have no idea where you're at, if you're making money, if you're not. And we use the basic functions of JobTread extremely well. And that's the creating proposals and the job costing. We, as doing kitchens, baths, and home additions, you have expenses all over the place. So being able to track those throughout the job, knowing where you're at, making sure that you're on track for what you estimated, all of that helps us to make more money in the long run.
Yeah. No, that's great advice. Again, I see people all the time that are just like, oh, we don't we don't have the time to do the job costing, or we don't have the people, or we don't have the systems. And it's like excuses after, one after another. It's like, no, like, how can you afford to not do the job cost? I mean, that is how you know definitively that you hit your numbers, that you hit that target profit. And if you didn't hit it, then you need to know today why you didn't hit it, so that you don't keep making the same mistakes over and over and over again. Like I see that like all the time. Like people just think, I think it's like the definition of insanity, right? It's like doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different outcome. It's like, that's crazy, right? Like you've got to take the time, and you need to make the time. If you don't feel like you have it, then figure that out and find the time to do that, because that is the only way to reliably scale your business, is to take that time to close out those books, close out every single job, and know how you performed and where you could do better. And that's what it's all about, is just continual improvement. And if you can't be real with yourself, and you can't look at your numbers like right there and say, hey man, like this is where we screwed up, then there's no way that you're going to continue to improve.
Yeah, coming from where I was as me doing everything and handling everything in the business, I can sympathize with these guys where you think you don't have time in the day. But if you keep that mindset, then just tell yourself that you're not going to grow. You have to make the time. So it is that important to sit down for an hour, maybe once a week, maybe twice a week, and go through your numbers, do that job costing. Our system now is we do it as we go. So our project managers are out there. They have to go buy something. As soon as they buy it, it goes straight into job tread. That's the easiest way that we found to job cost as we go. Nothing gets lost. All of our invoices are uploaded and in there. So if we ever get audited, everything's in job tread. We can pull it. We've got a photo tag for all of that. So we can pull everything up for every single job. It's easy to review. And that time blocking is just super important for that. If there's one thing that anybody gets out of this entire thing, time block for your numbers. It is that important.
I love that, man. Absolutely. Time block for your numbers. Take a note of that. So one last question here. I maybe give us the kind of the bigger picture, kind of the what's the bigger vision here? Where do you want to see TruVine in the next 5-10 years? How do you define success, and where do you want to take your business?
Man, it's crazy that you ask that question, because the goals and the dreams, they get bigger every day. I see the potential that's here, and going back again to your numbers, you can sit here. We're pre-planning for 2025 right now. So I know a lot of people, a lot of contractors never even look at what are our goals for next year. And a lot of them are going to start January 1. And that's when we're going to hit the ground running with our plan. So, over the next 5 to 10 years, what is my goal? I don't have it written out. It's like, I think we can be one of these $10 million businesses here in Memphis. I think we can have a 15% net profit. My goal is to pay myself $1 million. That seems achievable. It might sound crazy to some people, but I'm looking at the numbers and it says it's possible. Now all I have to do is reverse engineer that over the next 10 years to get to that. And so our goal for next year is to do 2.5 million. This year's been kind of a crazy year for us. It's been up and down, but we're probably going to double what we've done in the first 3 quarters of this year in the last quarter. So we've really just kind of turned things around. Anything is possible. We have hopes and futures of hiring more people, of opening a second location in another city. So really, if you have a goal, all you have to do is write it down and then reverse engineer your way to it, and you can make it happen. So will we get to 10 million in 10 years? I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball. Am I hopeful? Yes. Do I know that I've got more guts and brains and that I will just do the stuff rather than overthinking of it? Yes. So I'm really excited for the direction that we're headed. We've made some changes recently in our employee structure on how we're going to be moving forward from here on out, and it's just going to provide a lot of opportunities for us.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. And I would venture to say that I have all the confidence in the world that you will hit that goal. The biggest difference between people hitting their goals and not hitting their goals is whether they actually set them. You know, you clearly said it. You said this year our goal is this. Next year our goal is to get 2.5. Like the year after that, like when you create a goal for yourself, you set an annual budget. Here is what we want to do in sales, and then you can just back into and create a monthly goal based on your annual goal. And for people, if you're not creating budgets yet, fine. Just take your annual number, divide it by 12. There you go. There's your goal per month. That's the easy way to do it. As you get more and more data and as you get more experience, well, now you can start taking into account, seasonality and kind of cyclicality and figure out, okay, well, these months, we historically have performed, lower than what we'd like. And so maybe we're going to set our goal a little lower those months. And over in these other months, this is where we seem to, be able to do better. So let's, kind of pump up some more of the sales in those months. Like you can start to kind of refine your budgeting as you get more and more data, and you can use your historical data. But the biggest thing is just set a goal. Even if you miss that goal, at least you had it, and then you can say, well, why did we miss it? Where did we, screw up in our projections? What assumptions did we make that didn't come true? And what will we do next year to make sure that we account for that? And just every single year you get better and better and better, and you can continue to grow the business. But again, if you don't take the time to understand your numbers and set those goals and set those budgets and understand how you performed, how you performed on your job, how you performed for the month, how you performed for the quarter, for the year, like that's what it takes to build a scalable and profitable business. So I encourage everybody out there to do what Nick is doing. And I have no doubt, Nick, that you can build this into a $10 million business. Like I have zero doubt that is 100% possible for you, just like it is for the next guy and everybody else around. If you're willing to put in the time, put in the effort, continually improve your skills, and make sure that your team that you build out is the right team and has the right tools, techniques, you got the right people on the bus, the wrong people off the bus, and you focus and keep doing what you're doing, man. Like there's no reason that you can't get there, and it's just about kind of having that mindset. And, it's been awesome, man, to watch and see how you've been able to continue growing your business. I mean, every single day. And, I get to be a fly in the wall in Battleground and just seeing, how you all help each other. Like that is just so awesome, man. Like that I see you time and time again. You will take time out of your day to help your fellow peers to solve one of their problems. And that is a testament of a great leader and a great role model who's willing to do that to help others. And I'm just, it's awesome, man, seeing what you've been able to accomplish in the short time that you've been with us and with Battlegrounds. So I have no doubt that you got a lot of greatness in your future, Nick.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that.
Well, look, I really appreciate you coming on and sharing kind of what you've learned so far. It's obviously, takes a lot to kind of open up and sort of share some of the challenges and how you've overcome them. But, I appreciate what you do and for your, involvement in the job trade community as well. It's really awesome. I know a lot of the guys appreciate all your input in Job Trade Pros. And, I just want to thank you for all of that and for coming on and sharing, man. It's been awesome.
Yeah, thank you, Eric. It was super exciting to be here today, hanging out with you guys as well. I love Job Trade. I'll champion you guys until I die. So it's
all right,
been good
let's
being
not
here.
think that far in advance. You got a long way to go, brother. So keep it up, man.
I
Good
hear
seeing you. All right. Thanks for joining us for this episode of Builder Stories. We hope you enjoyed the conversation and gained valuable insights that can help you in your journey along the way. Don't forget to subscribe to the show and leave us a review. And as always, if you or someone you know has a story to share, please contact us at builderstories.com. We'd love to hear from you. I'm Eric Fortenberry, and remember, every builder has a unique story. Keep building yours.